While things are shutting down, we're still going live. Find out in this episode why you still can believe in your balance. The $100 billion rehab question is, how does someone who has had a fall and has lost mobility confidence believe in their balance again? With a fall comes the paralyzing fear of another, and with it, the loss of mobility, strength, energy, and independence. The list goes on. And that's the bad news, and usually where the downward health spiral begins, and illness and aging complications win. My name is David Dansero, physical therapist and certified aging in place specialist. Now for the good news. It doesn't have to end that way. Welcome to the Believe in Balance podcast, where I'll show you another path forward. Tune in as I share the top strategies and exercises to help you regain control over your balance using research-driven insights, evidence-based programs, and advice from industry leaders in aging and wellness and longevity. Whether you're already suffered a fall or had a few close calls and know you need to take charge and become more proactive about your balance health, this podcast is for you. You're sure to feel empowered and inspired to try something new in each episode. Ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 12 of the Believe in Balance podcast. I didn't even look today, but the way things were going last night, it looks like we were heading for a government shutdown, but that's not stopping us with learning how you can build better balance, and especially because we're going live in a couple of hours with our first workshop from my Believe in Balance course. I wanted to kind of talk to a few things that were on my mind after rehearsing my deck last night and getting ready to build out this live stream and hopefully to be part of an ongoing course to continue to build and provide resources for my community. So, I've been reflecting a lot about, balance. It's a task we mastered early in life, and it seems simple enough. But as we age or encounter an injury or illness, just like what I mentioned on the last episode 11, about the rise in, ankle, knee, hip injuries that I pointed to that folks came to me and were discharged with home exercise programs, sometimes leaving with, treating a joint but not really treating the whole body as a whole. It can set the stage for balance problems early on, and that's why I'm doing this course. We know balance is controlled by a complex combination of visual, muscular, and neurological sensory systems that all have to work together. And to build better balance, the nervous system must be challenged, and that happens through regular balance training. So on my workshop, there's still time to register. And if you're listening to this after October 1st, then you could probably check the link and still get on the replay. But I wanted to, make sure in the course we covered tips for building better balance. It includes an assessment of your weaknesses. And so we can test the appropriate exercise prescription that would be necessary, and it usually reveals in that testing which sensory system is impaired and which are the best exercises to be in a safe program to improve your balance. And we need to stay strong. Lower body strength and flexibility are critical factors for a rapid response to any balance disturbance. And then you have to practice, but you have to practice with purpose. And that's where the professional skills of a PT comes in. I happen to be trained in the Otago Balance and Fall Prevention Program, which you'll hear me talk about on the workshop. But you can find small ways to sneak in more balanced practice. As I went through the deck, I talk about things just like standing on one leg by brushing your teeth. Use the mirror to provide instant visual feedback on your progress. But the assessment, the mobility measurements that we're going to be over in the fall screening, part of the workshop are going to be something you can take away and bring in to immediate practice. But I talk through all this with, concern that, especially as I mentioned today, most likely we were in a shutdown. Programs are closing. Vets are being locked out of services. Medicare, Medicaid are at risk in the big beautiful bill or whatever the heck we're calling it, is going to, it's going to be devastating for rural hospitals. It's going to be devastating for community-based programs. And I talk a little bit about that in the workshop as well, but I want to keep this positive. And, one of the things I will talk about is that, you don't fall because you're old. If you're coming into the workshop, the point I want to get across is that you fall because you stop practicing. You don't fall because you tripped. You generally fall because you couldn't recover from that balance disturbance. And, balance isn't just something you lose with age. It's something you lose from neglect. Really you stop playing, you stop moving. I talked about riding a bike early on, things that challenged your balance, and then things you took as automatic as you moved through your childhood into adulthood. And maybe for the same reason, if you never learned and you took up trying to ride a bike later in life, it's a little bit tougher, but it's not impossible. But the problem is we now sit more, we slouch more, our posture plays a big role in our balance, especially the vestibular component to our balance. We generally, we reach less. We don't twist, hop, stretch the way we usually have done in earlier years. So when life throws us that challenge, such as the quick slip or the quick ankle twist, that misstep, that slippery curve, a surprise stare, we're not ready for it. And the world starts to close in and get smaller. We're going to talk a little bit about those risks and what happens when we lose our independence and the financial costs associated with it. It's not to scare you, but it's to empower you. Because you'll hear me talk on the workshop about whether you think you can't or you think you can, you are right. So I'm trying to get you to believe in your balance. So the workshop's going to run 30 to 40 minutes, hopefully. And there'll be some questions that came in I'm going to go over. But the point is, and I want to empower you, that you can train for balance, just like your strength, just like your endurance. You can do things like I mentioned, stand on one foot while you're brushing your teeth. Walk heel to toe down the hallway. Practice getting up from the floor. You don't need fancy equipment, is the other point I'm going to get across in the workshop. You don't need to go to the gym, but you need intention and you need consistency and you need accountability. And that's what some of the coaching services that I offer today were born out of the foundation of this program. And I'm going to talk about the great outcomes that I received. I'm going to show you some of the patient testimonials. But, a balance isn't a gift for the young. It's a skill for the active. And you can be old and you can still master those skills. And it's never too late to get it back. But first you have to believe in your balance. So hopefully this will be a short episode, just as a reminder that the workshop is live today. There's going to be a couple of nice gifts that I'll be handing out for those who stay to the end and complete the course survey, because this is an evolving course. It's going to be evergreen, but it's also going to be something that's going to build as the technologies improve. And a mentor of mine once said, teach people to laugh, think, learn, and sweat. They will heal. And when I was developing this program, one of the best compliments that you can get as a physical therapist is when people request to work with you. And some of the highlights in the stories that I'm going to talk about and share their outcomes on the workshop are great ones. And there's one other that, I talk about, when you're learning your balance, you do have to sweat a little bit, but you're also going to work your brain in ways that hopefully we're going to make your balance response more effective. And when I would get secretary come over to me and nudge me aside and say, hey, so-and-so saw you working with your patient and they want to get on your schedule. And I would always smile because that's the best compliment I could get, is that they saw me working with my patients, having fun, but also the patients would talk about how well they've improved. And you'd often see them in the lobby or in the waiting room talking about, hey, what are you doing with David, for example? And one patient who ended up switching over to me, he kind of coined the term mental sweat. And I still remember it today. And the last, as I went through my slide deck, and I hope I have a chance to cover this point, is that mental sweat he talked about was because he was used to working his body one way with a physical therapist, and that was kind of like sitting on a treatment table doing the typical heel slides, leg lifts, but not really incorporating dual tasking and working on his balance. So while maybe those treatment table based exercises maybe helped him get some initial strength back, and didn't do anything for his mobility confidence because he wasn't moving in multiple planes. He wasn't challenged, and he wasn't doing the things that made his brain have to, get higher to the tasks that we would do. A lot of the balance things he would talk about, like I finished a workout and I felt like my brain was needed to recover as well as my muscles. And that to me was the ultimate compliment. And on my last slide of my workshop, I show my young son and myself actually recovering, both sleeping. And I also have another split screen on there, and I show myself driving and my dog sleeping over my shoulder after I had just taken him out to do some of his own training. So it works. It works for kids. It works for adults. It even works for your pet. So exercise is the best medicine, and it's your body armor. And it certainly can help offset falls or make you recover faster if you do. So what I wanted to just talk about on the workshop is sort of what the program could offer you if you take action and you be accountable to yourself. But please join me. And again, like I said at the beginning, whether you think you can or you think you can, you are right. The choice is yours. The choice to join is yours. The course and the workshop are now available. Make the choice. That's all for now. Until next time, stay well, keep the faith, stay on your feet, and keep moving forward.